Chapter 6, Alpha. Strange people surrounded me, their eyes bounced off my shell. Kind words and touches were stored in the hard drive, but I was not there. I had slipped away, as still as death, into the fog between worlds, where only silence exists. It is safe there, it is still. After Elsa's death, my mother and I became close, and she had been almost completely emotionally distant from me and Elsa. I don't know who cleaned and fed us because she was always gone, but now her void was drawn to my void. One thing my mother had still used to do was sing us bedtime lullabies, classic children's songs about sailor boys and African animals and the moon and the stars. Now she crawled down with me in the lower bunk one night, her breath sour from the glasses of wine, pulled me to her and held me. I flinched and responded to the embrace. I needed the warmth on a purely physical level. Out of our losses, my mother and I met there in the dark, singing in her low voice so that I quietly fell asleep. She and I had become one. I was in the thick of it for a while. Mom's love for me was powerful, but when she succumbed to wine drinking and psychotropic drugs, or was tired and irritable, the heat of love was replaced by something cold and dark. Her love was such that when it did not compete with the brightness of the sun, it was an anti-love, that is, either an indifference or a contempt. Hatred. I rose and fell with my mother's mood. At the same time, I became her champion. At all costs, she would sit on her pedestal. God help anyone who had a bad word to say about her. I would protect her honor to the core. I would always put her first, always before myself, and I would have crushed all her enemies. We didn't talk about Elsa. It was as if she had never existed. Many times as a child, and even as an adult, I have sat with photographs and patched and tried to figure out the whole content of our early life together. If I tried to follow the broken thread of memory, it was met only with silence. But in my games, she was still alive and omnipresent. I drew us together at school and signed some drawings with her name. I picked a seat for her on the bus. And in the school auditorium, she was always there, even though she was always missing. When Freya came to visit with a present, a turquoise bulletin board, and pinned my birthday cards, I divided the bulletin board with a chalk and sorted the cards fairly so that there were equal numbers on each side. I had several different worlds, one with Elsa still alive, one as my mother's bodyguard, and another with my father. We now lived in an old stone house in Enebyberg and had moved back to the Stockholm area. Dad took care of me and slept in my room when he was home. I was in 3rd grade and Freya had come to visit us in the new house. I eyed her suspiciously. She was a stranger to me, and yet there was something about her simple, sincere features, her beautiful eyes, and her hair that felt familiar. I wondered if Freya might like me. How she has changed, Freya said about me to my mother. Mom had said to me before she came, Freya, whom you like so much, she is coming here from Norway to look after you while Dad and I are away. I wondered who this Freya was, remembering the pieces from the different puzzles. I tried to put the puzzle together, but it was like someone grabbed the box of pieces and shook them and poured them out in front of me again. An alter ego took over. They were shaped by life's circumstances, as all personalities are. Instead of the personality of the one Alva, I became many. But the innermost rooms of my soul only I could touch. The others were armor, defenses, protectors in reality that was in a reality that was too insecure. I'm a changeling, I informed Freya. Not Alva, who was weak, but this I was strong and protected Mom and Dad and the house with strong muscles. Freya took her, out for a walk. We trudged along the railroad tracks. I looked at her suspiciously. Do you remember when we took the train to Grandma's? Freya asked. Nope. But you thought it was so funny and climbed up on the luggage rack and laughed your heads off, you little rascals. It sounded stupid, I thought. After the walk, my mother sat with Freya laughing like a witch while cigarette smoke filled the kitchen. I sat on the stairs in the hall, where they couldn't see me. It was on the stairs that I exercised my muscles by jumping from the steps. Higher up with each exercise, I would jump so high one day that I could fly away. I heard Mom's muffled voice, heard Freya's brighter one. Deep in my heart, the sound of her voice made me long. I started sucking my thumb on the step where I was sitting. I usually only did that in the evenings, even though I was 9 years old and the school nurse had talked to me about teeth and lisping. What happened to Alva in the hospital? I heard Freya ask. You mean in the children's mental hospital? She was hospitalized for a few weeks after hiding in the music room at school. She had crawled into a cupboard and stayed there. You see, they were worried. The police came and everything before the janitor found her. How is she doing now? Now she's doing great. She was treated at the children's hospital and now she is happy and very independent. She has a lot of integrity, so you don't have to worry so much about her. I let the two women gossip all they wanted in the kitchen and went up to my room. I had a large room full of tangled projects. There was my school bag on the floor. I couldn't care less about homework, even if someone had paid me. It was stupid. Everything was stupid. We had dinner together. Can you pass the potatoes, please? I joked and grimaced. Do you like your new school? Freya asked me nicely. Well, there's a time for all suffering, I said. My mother laughed. She has learned a song in the schoolyard. Sing it, Alva. Alva half, I said. I didn't dare say that my name was Fredrika. As the school had complained that I was lying about my name. Then I stood up in the chair and started singing a dirty song that I had picked up. Boo Boo has a girlfriend, Cindy Cindy. Boo Boo has a girlfriend, Cindy Cindy Bear. Cindy has a shaven snatch, Grizzly Grizzly. Cindy has a shaven snatch, Grizzly Grizzly Bear. And so on and so forth. She's really changed, said Freya. That's right, I said. The next day, Mom and Dad went away and left me with Freya. I was at school during the day. I was friends with everyone and no one. I was funny and goofy and kept everyone at a distance. The last lesson was gymnastics, and we played softball in the schoolyard. The schoolyard was undulating as the surrounding meadows and trees, but I was a tightly crumbled ball. I bulged defiantly. My body was a gangster and I distrusted it deeply. That's why I couldn't run around like the other children. Groups of screaming, flying kids were something I couldn't stand. So I froze on my patch of grass with my shoulders tensed up. Actually, it was best to be worst. But it was a rule that no one else knew, unfortunately. She's not running, she's ruining the game, roared an angry boy's voice. I gasped. This Daniel guy was standing there pointing for all to see. So I flew at him and I pushed him to the ground and he started crying. The gym teacher separated us and dragged us off to our teacher. You stayed there, reproached Anneli, the teacher, looking at Daniel's tear-stained face. Go to the school nurse, she told him, and he hurried off, sniveling, while I had to sit on a bench with my arms tightly crossed over my chest. I sat there until Freya came to pick me up. She came into the classroom in her suede jacket and her kind face, and the grumpy teacher, Anneli, spilled the beans after they greeted each other. Unfortunately, we had an incident with Alva in gymnastics today. She hit a classmate. I think she needs a long talk about respect and violence. Kiss my ass. In the car on the way home, Freya said, You must not fight, Alva. Never ever. I will be so disappointed in you if you fight. It hit hard. She thought of disappointing. My fault that Elsa died. My fault that Mom drank. My fault that Dad. The vision became blurred. The tears grew as if a dam had burst. There, I heard Freya say. The crying scared me, and I disappeared into the fog. I woke up again in my room and looked around despondently. The maid Ida in the Astrid Lindgren story had a method that appealed to me. The time she had a toothache and put a red-hot potato on her tooth, because if it hurt her, she would hurt it back. It hurt to be Alva. There was nothing about Alva that I liked. People said I had nice hair, but that also hurt me. My long curly hair was something Dad particularly liked. I wanted nothing more than to cut my hair short, but I didn't dare do that for fear of him. But now he wasn't here, so I grabbed my scissors, pulled a loop of hair over my forehead, and cut it. Then I got scared. I stubbornly told myself I never got scared. Secretly, I did it far too easily and judged myself harshly for it. I scared myself. That was the problem. When my older brothers stayed with us for a weekend, I tried to convince them that my eyes were like cats and that they glowed in the dark. Yes, they do, they said calmly. Then I jumped out of bed with tears of fear on my cheeks. It was the same with the stuffed animals in the closet. My allies, my closest confidants. We could live in a secret gap in time there in the closet, and they would be safe. They could come to life and start talking to me, I assured them. Then I saw their plastic eyes glimmer in the gloom inside and scared myself so that I couldn't feel safe in the closet anymore. With a firm grip on the scissors and a new lopsided haircut, I also got scared and ran to find Freya, who was in the bathroom with the door closed. I have to tell you something, I said, but then I suddenly changed my mind and headed for the attic and went inside, locking the attic door behind me. In the attic, I was not afraid. Up there, I was just peaceful, big sweeping surfaces in a darkness that reassured me. It was a mystery up there. Freya knocked on the door. What is it? Alva, buddy, please tell me. No, I couldn't. I couldn't. I sat on the other side of the locked door and waited until Freya's knocking had subsided, unable to move. I'm going to break the door open. No, she couldn't. Instead, I dashed down the attic stairs and threw open the door. But what have you done? Freya exclaimed. Let me see. She combed her fingers through my short hair. But why? What will Mom and Dad say? Our eyes met across time and space, met across the abyss. Oh gosh, Alva, but it's quite nice anyway. I craned my neck. As I said, I don't know how food was usually put on the table when my mother was home, how I took care of hygiene or got to bed on time. Mom had a way of filling every corner of the house while at the same time being absent, while Dad controlled everything on the days of the month he was home. When my brothers lived with us, they ordered pizza, rented movies, and bought candy. I have a memory of pulling out crisp bread and pressing tube cheese on it. Maybe that was my default food. But now Freya had made chicken, just for her and me. It was so good that I forgot all my enemies. But I had to go to bed, and Freya made sure of that. Not only that, did you jump in the shower? Did you brush your teeth? Maybe Freya saw another half of Alva, a good child. It was like a dream I had been secretly dreaming of, that under this hard armor there was something good, a good child. My changing eyes met me in the mirror, glistening with despair. I wished that Freya would stay forever. I went to bed, strong and capable. She said, You're already in bed. I smiled brightly. Mom told me that you need to wear your pull-ups when you sleep, and that I should remind you. Are you wearing them? The dream was shattered where I lay. I bitterly realized that my mother had told on me. Now she knew the truth, that I was not a good child, on the contrary. I was also a bedwetter when I was little. It will pass, said Freya. She was good anyway, Freya, but I didn't believe her anymore. And chapter 6 comments. When I lost Elsa, I also lost my sense of self. I lost my roots, my connection with myself. I was already struggling to find my footing, and now I had become a different child, because the person I was wasn't up to the task of coping with a reality where children died and parents let you down. I looked at children who were tough, wild, and strong, and as I dissociated and fragmented reality, I created a self that was the exact opposite of the shy, thoughtful, and sensitive child I originally was. I looked down on myself, and I knew I was too weak to survive. Through horrific traumas, the alter ego of Fredrika was created. Not late survivor's guilt was one of my traumas. In my mother's behavior, there was emotional boundlessness with sexual undertones, a desire, but she also devoted herself to punishing and abandoning. My grief and despair were not allowed to exist. My father's rapes were constant. Fredrika could be perceived as a stubborn and funny child, but behind the defiance lay a deep despair, as deep as the cracks left by an earthquake, difficult for outsiders to imagine. What Fredrika was is not a charade, a role, or a game, but a tough character that my subconscious created out of sheer desperation, and whose existence I was unaware of until much later. DAD is not an identity crisis, but a soul that cannot survive when left at the mercy of psychopaths, and must protect itself by creating strong armor or alter egos. When you are severely traumatized, your development comes to a standstill. You can regress, but you can also move forward whilst simultaneously living with different ages, parts of your personality that have become separated from the self and frozen in time. Sometimes traumatized people appear younger than they are. However, another method is to shut off emotions and retreat into one's head. Memories and feelings become isolated from the person.